episode 30.
30.
I think. Is it 30? Something like that. We're something. First one of the year, January 1st. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Happy New Year, 2020.
Thank you for all the support through 2019. It's been crazy growth. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate the love.
We got a special one today. We got Al Jackson in town.
Whoop. Gentlemen, what's
Go
up?
ahead and introduce yourself for the people that aren't familiar.
What's up, Al Jackson, comedian. Same old TV personality. I don't know. It's weird to introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's like my least favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
We need to start doing it beforehand.
Do a little bit of everything. I think every comedian does now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was like researching you obviously before we started doing this. You got a long list of stuff that you're involved in, man.
Yeah.
So how do you talk about like the work-life balance? Like how do you do that? Are you comfortable being on the road all the time? Are you used to that?
Well, I used to be on the road all the time, and I host a talk show now called Daily Blast Live, and so that kind of has done a good job in terms of grounding me. I don't tour as much anymore. I'm probably on the road maybe 20 weeks a year now, and those are really just Friday, Saturdays, where it used to be Thursday through Sunday runs. But I think, touring, especially when that's your only source of income for the most part, it requires you to be disciplined, even though the narrative with comics is to kind of be wild and drink it up and party it up, but it just doesn't work long term, and it just doesn't work. You have to be your own publicist. You run your website, you run your social media, you have to engage, you have to comment on comments, you have to write new material because people record your material and post it. Yeah. And so I don't think that you can just cruise like comics, and I'm not taking shots at anybody, but like pre-internet comics were just like comedy clubs just sold out kind of no matter who was there. Mm-hmm. Now people have the audience that they kind of bring with them, and they kind of just fill this space with their fans. So it's work during the day. It's not this
party all night type.
Or just sleep till 6 o'clock and then
go to
take a shower and go do a show. I mean, I don't even know if I would want that. That's that kind of lifestyle. I think everything. It's like conceptually, like if somebody said, well, why don't you eat a candy bar every day for breakfast? It tastes better than breakfast food. And you're like, oh, for 1 or 2 days, you're like, oh, why didn't everybody do this?
Yeah.
And after the third day, you're like, I'm going to die. and I think that's a thing. It's like, you think like, oh, I'm going to party it up every night and we're going to do it. Free drinks at the bar, girls and attention, and do it. And then tell me how you feel in a year, in 5 years.
Yeah.
So did you fall into that trap?
Of course, because I think
comics right there too.
Yeah, well, you get I think a lot of people get into comedy for different reasons. Some because they just love stand up, but also because like you like attention and you like accolades and people to enjoy what you're doing. And I think that whole to the victors goes the spoils. Yeah. I think some of that does happen with stand up, where after you get off stage, you're like, I do deserve, a
shot or something,
a shot or 5, and to be taken out and to go out to the club and all that stuff. But once you'll come to a point, hopefully, where you decide whether you want to get into this to party or get into it because you love the work, and then your career will take you where it goes after you make that decision.
So I have a question. So at what age did you know you were funny? And what led you to comedy? Like, was it Richard Pryor? Like, who do you look up to?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's a great question. I don't know if I ever thought I was funny. I thought me and my friends were all funny, And I remember when I first started telling people I was doing stand up, they were like, "Oh, that's cool," but like no one was like, nobody in high school or college was like, "Dude, you got to do stand up." I was pre-med. I got my undergrad in biology, my master's in biomedical sciences. I was all set. Man. Yeah, I was all set to go to medical school. I was just really doing stand-up at night because I wanted something to do. And after a while, I started making enough money where it started coming to like the question. I'm like, oh, is this something I want to do full-time? I really enjoy it. Yeah. So that was that. But, in terms of like being fun, I don't know if like real life funny always completely translates to stand up. You
That
know,
was probably my
I've had
follow
a
up
lot of
question. Is like,
conversations
yeah,
about
I
that.
don't know. I don't know the funny guy at the bar, the funny guy in the office,
lunch table.
Yeah, it's just like I think
is he funny in stand up?
Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
conversations with people about that too, because like I've always been like the funny guy at the lunch table, but it's different than like telling a story. Because to me, that's what stand up comedy is. Unless you're like, I mean, there's certain comedians like Jimmy Carr or someone that's just a bunch of one liners.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're telling a story, and then at the end there's this crazy punchline. You know, and it's like that's a different art, that's a different skill than just being funny.
Right.
Like
yeah.
you can be the rebuttal guy all you want, but that'll never work on a stage. You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's where the funny person at the office or the bar runs into trouble. And first of all, those people have value. You know, the funny guy at the bar does keep things light. The funny woman in the break room, people do look at, oh great, Sharon's in here, we'll laugh a little bit before we go back to work. I'm not hating on them.
Yeah.
Know
But
your role.
I think that stand-ups, you know, we kind of are, it's more about mental theater and taking somebody on a journey that's got a twist at the end. And sometimes it can be a dark twist, sometimes it can be a funny twist, sometimes you can think you know exactly what's going, but it's not really, unless you said like a Jimmy Carr or a Mitch Hedberg, where it's just a one-liner that you can kind of follow, and it's almost like its own self-contained joke. I think a lot of times with comics, we're tasked with the job of establishing our character, establishing a trust with the audience. Like, okay, this person's funny, so I trust them to talk for a little while, and I trust that there's going to be a payoff at the end. That way you don't feel like you have to rush to get to your punchline because, you know, they're going to start to boo or they're going to lose attention, you know. So like there's a lot we have to do up front to establish our character, and then after that you feel like you can take them wherever you want, you know.
And I feel like a lot of comics cause I've been to a couple of comedy shows, and like, you know, I've been watching a lot of specials lately. I've been seeing a resurgence in that, like, and like with Netflix and like really pushing comics. Obviously, they're pushing like the big ones, of audiences and stuff. But I feel like I always found comics funny, but more like, I don't know how to describe it, like very like an important role, because they always talk about real shit.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I was always like, every time I went to the comedy shows, like, wait, like we're here to laugh. And then that's just like a one-liner, like stupid jokes. A lot of times they're like talking about like
Heavy
current
stuff.
shit.
Yeah.
And then like having to make a joke about it. So like, or make it come off light, or have a different understanding, or like a lot of perspectives. Like I feel like I've adopted a lot of perspectives from like a Dave Chappelle. Just because like the way he like story tells and kind of makes a joke out of it. Like, wait, I mean, I don't think he's wrong about that, you know?
Yeah, and that's the only way that you can get people to listen to you. I mean, you know, MSNBC and Fox are on literally 24 hours a day saying kind of the same thing with every one of their shows, just in a different way. Either Trump's the best or Trump's the worst, or, you know, trans rights are important, or, you know, whatever, you know. But, you know, comics are the only people, I don't think people listen to you unless you can make them laugh. Maybe if you're a rapper, but how many people that don't agree with that kind of lifestyle and that, you know, really listen to rap? The only way that I could get a Fox News viewer to listen to a black man's perspective on the world is probably by making him laugh, whether he knew it or not, by getting him to trust me, whether he knew it or not. And by, again, with that trust, it's like, I'm not going to hit you over the head. It's not going to be like, if I have a microphone, I could say, you know, if I was a Christian comic, if you support gay rights, you're going to hell. I mean, people don't want to hear that. I don't think that. But I could say that. But if I say that, I'm going to lose a significant part of the audience, no matter how I feel about gay rights or how I feel about Black Lives Matter. If I can make it funny and make it palatable, people will at least listen. And I think it's the whole, you know, take a horse to water thing. Like, if this is how you feel about this subject and you feel passionately enough about it that you want to talk about it, and just know that. I remember talking to Brian Regan one time, and
Hilarious comedian.
he's hilarious and
hilarious.
super clean, and I never forgot the story he told, because it just showed me that you can never please the whole audience. Obviously, he's super clean and has been his whole career.
Right.
And he said he does like an hour and a half theater show. He said the word hell in it one time. And he said a guy walked up to him after the show and was like, hey, if I knew you were going to be using language like this, I wouldn't have come. And it's like, Brian Regan, 20
That's
years,
funny.
no curse words, no political talk, no and just like one guy's like, this is outrageous.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you have to realize that they're going to be fringe people that like,
right.
if you say anything, they I'm out. You know, but for the most part, I think people would be willing to listen. And so then it comes down to you. It's like, do you
feel the responsibility?
Yeah, and care enough, man. Like,
right.
What do you want to talk about? You could be in your real life very political. You could be getting people out to vote for Bernie or vote for Trump or whatever. But in your act, you're like, I want to talk about fucking.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to.
Not everything has to be political.
Yeah, or just like, this is how I feel and I wear
right.
my feelings on my shoulder. It's like, dude, you know, whatever.
Some shit can just be funny.
Yes,
you know
it could be
like,
funny, or it could just be that could be another part of you. It's like maybe one part of you talks about politics, you know, online and on a blog or a vlog or whatever on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But like when people come out to see you on a Friday night, it's jokes about smoking pot and hanging out with your old lady, and that's cool too. So it's like, you know, I anybody that's thinking about doing stand up, you know, or is currently doing it, I don't know if they should ever feel this obligation to talk about anything that instinctually they're not driven to talk about. I think your instinct is your true God, and you just follow it. Now, if it's politics and like you want to, you know, have like a Lewis Black kind of act, you know, where you talk about the government, that's fine too. But then you're gonna have people that have issues with that, you know, because it's so sensitive. So it's just all about, but if you really care, you won't care if they have issues because you feel that passionately about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let's get back to like comedians that you listen to. Who are some, like, who's the comedian's comedian? Like, who do you go to for inspiration, or who do you just love listening to, if you have any? Just
like guys that are good friends of mine, guys that I've been friends with for years. I mean, my buddy Dan Soder just had his special on HBO. I mean, you know, I basically lived with him for a year in Queens. My buddy Nate Bargatze, and just like, they're just so many.
So the community's tight knit.
Oh
at
my
least
God!
In your
yeah, I
experience?
mean, we all know each other. I tour with Hannibal. Me and Hannibal have been touring together for 4.5, 5 years.
We have a question about Hannibal.
And my buddy Eric Andre, like, they're just Michelle Buteau.
Eric Andre, hilarious. Michelle
Yeah,
Buteau.
they're just like, these are all. I mean, I met Michelle Buteau. I mean, she was probably my first friend in comedy. I mean, I probably met her. I met her when she was still a late night news editor on NBC, and she's probably 23 at the time, and I was still a middle school teacher in Miami. That probably had 10 sets under his belt, and we've been like brother and sister ever since. And so like all these people, it's weird. Like when I see my friend, that's still weird. Like I see my friends on TV, and like, you know, I was hanging with my girl yesterday, and like my show was on, my Daily Blast live show was on. It's weird that it's not a thing anymore, that like if I flick past 20 channels, my close friends will be on 6 of them.
Yeah.
So it's just
crazy.
good to see, and just let every young comic know, like, all these guys like Joe List and all, we were all just like young, goofy, crazy broke comics in New York.
Yeah.
And now it's just weird to hear people say like, oh, that guy's she's my favorite comic, or he's my favorite. I'm like, that's my homie. Like, you know, I've been doing shows with Kumail forever. I did the Meltdown with him and Jonah, and just like, these are, you know, Tone Bell, Joe DeRosa. I did my first paid gig with my buddy Joe DeRosa, and it's
wild.
you know, it's like, these are all like the comics that are out on the forefront now. And I think, you know, I look at us and I'm really proud, because we literally made something out of nothing. Like, no one had any, there was no money.
Yeah.
None.
That's why I asked that. Like,
yeah, none.
Yeah.
like, how do you make money doing comedy? And like, is there also like a youth aspect, or is young people still trying to do comedy? Like, I've never heard anyone in my life who's like, yo, I'm gonna be a stand-up comic. Not saying it's a bad thing, but like, I was like, you know, like, especially with being a minority, every kid who plays sports would be in music, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, those are the two options. And I have my feelings about that. I think we're creative. We're forced to be creative.
Horizons.
We can pick better things. But like, I've never heard anybody in my life. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do stand-up.
comedian.
I'm gonna be a comedian.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
it
mean,
couldn't- yeah.
I don't know if I ever had that thought. I mean,
It just kind of happens.
I just started the way I started. I mean, I think that now my career would be different. My path would be different in that, like, I think now you could Google, you could look at, like, if your favorite comic was Patton Oswalt, you could Google Patton Oswalt talks about the beginning of his career, and you could listen to that. You could listen to Joe Rogan talk about the beginning of his career, or Michelle Wolf, and look at their path and be like, I want to do that. I want to be a comic that's got a successful podcast and then tours off that. Or I want to be a comic that talks about political stuff and becomes a correspondent on a Daily Show and then do that. You can kind of, I don't.
The door is like wide open.
It's a wide door that leads to 200 other doors where you can select. It's like, I'm going to be, Two Dope Queens. I've known Phoebe forever. Like, I've known them for, and then I remember reading an article about how big their podcast was. I didn't even know.
Yeah,
it's like, and I'm so happy, but it's just like, they're my friend. I don't care. I don't.
You don't look up credentials when you're
Right.
making
I'm
friends.
like, that's my homie. I'm like, if they have 5 listeners, I'll do your podcast. If you're 5 million, I'll do your podcast. I don't.
Right.
And so, like, you look at people that went the podcast route, that went the YouTube route, the people that just did a bunch of late night sets until they got put on. You look at somebody like Michelle Wolf, who I knew her as a comic, but I would follow her on Twitter, and I was like, this human being is a prolific joke writer to the point where I would start to see her jokes get retweeted by other people I knew didn't know her, and so I would look and I'd be like, oh, she is 1,800 followers now. And then I look again and she'd be at 3,300. Then I look again and she'd be like, I'd be like, wow, she's doing great. And then all of a sudden, I'm sure other writing staff shows were like, who is this motherfucker?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And they got her, and now she is Michelle Wolf. But she's been doing that and she got, I don't want to say, and I don't want to speak because I don't know exactly what broke her, but I knew her as a comic, but I think a lot of people first knew her as a hilarious person on Twitter. And then now she, writes correspondence dinner, and obviously she does stand-up, and I'm sure she's staffed on a million things. But, all these people, Ali Wong used to do my show in L.A. for years, and we all knew, like, all this stuff that people are seeing now. And I'm sure somebody's going to write and be like, yo, your real name dropping. These are my friends. Like, I've known these guys. We did shows at bars when no one gave a shit. So I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like...
It's interesting that you say that, because I think for us, I think you're right when you say, like, we don't really know anyone that's pursuing comedy. But I think for us, like, what we see is kind of what you're saying. Like, we'll see the funny people on Twitter, then go on YouTube, and then all of a sudden we see them doing stand-up. So it's almost like that's the progression. Whereas it sounds like for you, it was like you start stand-up, you go and bomb 1,000 times, and then you hop on Twitter, get some retweets, and then you're writing, Yeah. So I almost feel like the process is backwards now.
Yeah.
Where it's like we leverage social media.
And it's funny that you brought it up, because I was thinking as you were talking about social media, like, maybe I was wrong on that take, because like maybe there's a youth full of people who are funny. You think about like Vine, Twitter, Instagram, the people that actually blow up and build audience, they try to do funny shit. Like, they're not like, you don't really see a lot of people who are the youth who are famous because they have a great take on politics.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even business. It's like, no.
They have a skit that like
I do
blew
skits.
up.
I do pranks on my girlfriend. I'm really funny on Instagram video. Like,
Right.
I forget this one guy I follow on Twitter. He does like Hood Dudes Be Like. And like, I forget his name, but that dude's
I know what you're
hilarious.
talking about. Yeah.
And it's just like, wait a minute, like, I kind of was wrong. I think everyone's actually trying to be a comedian. But because it leads to 30 billion doors, it doesn't mean that you're going to be Dave Chappelle.
Right.
You're going to be on stage. It might be like, oh, now I have a Disney show. Or,
Right, yeah.
Or like, it's like, because you're funny, right? And
Right.
you
Or
joke.
you could be like, was it DeJesus and Romero? I know I always mess his name. Those two guys that got I think they're on Showtime now. The black dudes, they basically do like, it's basically like
Key and
PTI
Peele type of skits?
No, it's like PTI.
Okay.
You know that show on ESPN with Michael Wilbon.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like they're two black dudes. They have a rundown and they just talk about
Those
like,
dudes are hilarious,
you know.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah, but it's the same thing. But it's like pop culture. They'll be like, Cardi B breaks up with Offset on stage and they'll talk about it. And then the next thing that, and but it's like those guys were just dudes, you know, I'm sure they were doing it in their basement. The set originally looked like their basement. And now then they were on Vice. Yeah, they were on Vice, and then they got picked up by Showtime. I'm like 99% sure they're on Showtime now.
So it's the progression's just
but
different.
It's just everything is just like developing your audience, and your audience is there to see you do what you do. And I've worked with famous YouTubers before, and their audience kind of comes to see them do what they do. If you, like you said, the hood dudes be like guy, if he you know rented out a theater, he could come out, do a little quick meet and greet, and hey, what's up, y'all? Glad y'all came out. A couple funny things about the city. Hey, this reminds me of this video. Then he throws to the video, and everybody's really doing what they would do at home, which is watch his hood dudes be like video in a theater with other fans. And it's a fan experience. And all those people leaving there will be super happy. And more
fans than they were.
And they'll be like, they'll meet other people that are also fans. There'll be girls there. You know, and it'll be, or boys or whatever fan, and you know that's how you build your audience. But it might not be an hour and a half of smashing stand up. But who gives a shit if your audience is happy? Like, who cares?
That's good to hear you say that, because I've listened to a lot of comedian interviews, and a lot of them are kind of like upset with how the current climate is. And I don't want to say a lot of them, but I've heard you know there's a few people that are upset. Kind of talk about. This is like a question I wanted to ask you, the changing climate where like it used to be you had your special on Comedy Central and then maybe HBO, but now it's kind of switching to, I think Amazon's picking up specials now. How do you view that? How do you, do you drop specials? Is that something that you think
I mean,
about?
I did a special that it's going to go to Netflix, but it's like old now. So I'm in the process of working a new hour out. That's why I'm in Grand Rapids this week. But I mean, I think with the hours, it's different. I mean, if you have some kind of following, I think Netflix will probably be willing to listen. But it looks like Amazon has a little bit of a different model where you kind of bet on yourself. You do something. I think I heard Jim Gaffigan talk about it, where he just already has a built-in audience. So I think that model is more of a, if you can get clicks or buys, you'll do a lot better. So so it's like, if you can get your audience to buy this off of Amazon, no different than if you could get them to buy, you know, the latest Adam Sandler movie, then you get more points for that. Or it's just like a Netflix thing where we'll give you some cash. You'll never know how many views it got. It's just that you get your cash and then we own it. So you can either kind of bet on yourself, and you would do that if you have a Jim Gaffigan kind of career where you've got 8 killer hours behind you, where he has an audience that so it's like he puts it up there. I think Louis did that as well. He put his hour just on his website.
Something like that.
Didn't give it to anybody, just like, and his fans bought it from his website. So
I think Andrew Schultz puts his out on YouTube directly. He just gives it out for free.
Because it just built his already huge base. So I think you look at like what kind of following you have and what the business model works for you is. And I think that's what 2020 and beyond is going to build for people. Is just like, you build the business around you, not like, oh, Sam, we like you, so you're going to do Jimmy Kimmel, you're going to do Fallon, and then we're going to make you a guest star on whatever the horseshit sitcom is on NBC. You'll be the funny white neighbor with the black landlord. And if you get some traction from that, we'll get you a spinoff called Sam's World. It's like, it used to be like, you're just a thing we put into this machine. And now it's kind of like, you are the machine. If you guys, if this ends up, you guys have a situation where you're getting, 6 million downloads per episode, like, you guys are the machine. You guys decide, hey, we want to go on a tour. Do we need to call our agent? No. We can call a venue, rent that shit out for $2,000, charge $45 a ticket, make our money, be out, and hire a tour manager and you don't have to have the, go to your agency, hat in hand, like, please, sir, can we go on tour? Like, you guys dictate that. Exactly. And I think that is for stand-up. That's for if you do a podcast on gardening that blows up. I mean, think about how many. Look at the My Favorite Murder podcast. That's that's my homeboy Vince. That's George's his wife, and I didn't know, because I just knew them I didn't know. I didn't even put that together that was them. I've known, and the way that I found out was on my TV show. I had my probably I'm 42 now. It's probably my 40th birthday. I had just like a dive bar in LA. My buddy Tone Bell, my boy Vince in Georgia came, and my boy Joe DeRosa I think was there too, and we all just took a picture at this bar. And one of the interns on my show goes, "You know Georgia?" And I'm like, "How do you know Georgia?" And she's like, "She does my." And I was like, "Oh wow!" But it's like, you know, they do theaters. They do stand up, I think, but not at those. They come out, look at Pod Save America. Yeah. They do fucking huge theaters. They sit in a chair and talk about politics. Yeah. So it's like you know, you do whatever your audience likes to see or hear you do. You don't feel obligated to do anything more or less than that. Because they might not like it. If they like the podcast and you guys come out and do an hour and a half on, you know, how your girlfriend is annoying, they might be like, "Oh, they didn't even interact. We listen to you guys to hear y'all interact. So give the people what they want. It's simple."
Yeah. So I have a question. Like, how do you feel about Kevin Hart? Is he somebody who's like been doing it right, or he's been somebody that's been doing it wrong in your opinion, or do you think there's no right or wrong? I just started watching his documentary on Netflix, and like I remember,
I forgot about that. I haven't even watched.
So I remember listening to Kevin when I was younger, and I thought he was super funny. I don't think he's funny anymore.
Really?
Yeah, to be honest. Like,
oh man.
Like I don't know. I just like him as a person, but I'm like I didn't like really find his jokes funny. Like I'll like listen to him like all right, like or his last special he I didn't laugh like once. But it was like entertaining
sitting
though.
There cold face.
It was like entertaining to watch him because like I feel like behind the scenes he's like the biggest comic out right now. Like he obviously is selling out arenas and shit.
Yeah, and I mean that's.
And I'm like what? And then you look at his movies. I'm like yo, his movies be doing that well.
Look, man. Kevin's as famous as you can get, and there's so much that goes into that. I don't think that anybody could be asked to handle that any better than he has. And it's like, and I say that having never met him. We have a lot of mutual friends, but I never met him. I mean, but I don't think that anybody is prepared to be that famous. I don't think that's natural or normal to be that famous. And there's no playbook for how you are supposed to react when people see you and they burst into tears. Yeah. I mean, whose central nervous system is set up to handle that on a daily basis to the point where you have the people close to you trying to set you up with a sex tape because you are so valuable that anytime you're in someone's presence, you have the ability to change their life and change their family's lives. And with that kind of pressure,
that's crazy.
How do you trust anybody? How do you
That's crazy.
How do you ever have a connection, a real connection with somebody post being that famous or even on your way to being that famous? Yeah. You know, and it's just like
everybody's looking at you like a business deal.
Yeah, I mean the people coming at you with investment opportunities, family and friends saying, "Hey, dude, we're so proud of you.
This idea.
Yo, me and your uncle, you know, his grandma's gonna lose his house. She didn't pay taxes for 10 years. We need $97,000, or your aunt's gonna lose her house. Can you help us? We're desperate. My son has cancer. Please send $10,000. There's a picture of him with tubes in his nose. How does one person deal with that on a daily basis and maintain a marriage and be a dad and still be? I don't know. Yeah. I hope I have that problem, but in a weird way, I don't know if I wouldn't. And I would wonder. I would want to talk to him. Would he rather be Brian Regan that tours on a tour bus? I'm sure is a multimillionaire a million times over, but he can go to the mall. Mm-hmm. He can eat dinner with his wife. You know, because Kevin can never spend all that money, but he can also never go to a fair with his kids and stand there and not be accosted. So, you know, I don't know how how anybody could be asked to be that famous unless you really wanted to. And he's, because of his, not only his stature, but he's got such a unique look and voice, he can never really sneak anywhere, you know, like fucking even Jimmy Fallon could probably throw on a hat and some glasses and kind of sneak around a little bit
yeah.
before people knew. But like somebody like Shaq, whose show I used to write on, or LeBron, who's 6 foot 1,000. You're like, you're
not walking around in public.
Yeah. So your idea of what life is, what human interaction is, has got to change, and I'm sure that's going to change the dynamic within your relationship. And it's so interesting how like we look at Kevin, who obviously had some fidelity issues, and it's just like people meet it with the same vitriol as like anybody else. I'm like, he has Brazilian underwear models sending him DMs. How would your husband hold up against that? Like, it's like we ask all the like, we put him in the same criteria as like a plumber in Jersey. That like it's I'm 30 years, no mistakes. Yet no one want to fuck you, dude. Like it's like it's really hard to ask one dude from Philly to have the whole world on his shoulders every day
and then be perfect.
And if you don't,
come from where he comes from.
Yeah, you're gonna be a meme, and you're gonna be a joke, and you're gonna go on Red Table Talk, and
your kids
cry
are
with
old enough to understand
Jake.
what's going on.
Yeah, it's like, dude, man,
that's a
with
life that I don't want.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's but it would be great to step on stage at an arena and everybody's there to see you. That's great too.
Yeah.
So,
but what you're kind of alluding to is like that's the part that everyone sees. But you don't see the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You don't see the fact that you can't be with your kids in public because you don't want a mob around your kids. Like,
yeah, and it affects your kids.
Yeah, there's conversations that you have to have.
How do your kids go to school? Like,
right.
Because everything your dad does is public knowledge, and your daddy cheated on your mom, and just like, dude, it's the DMs. Can you imagine, like, if your kid was on social media? Like, I don't put my kids on my social media at all, or really anybody. Because I always say that they didn't choose to be in show business. So, but eventually people will find out, and it's something to think about.
Yeah.
So, I'm also, I don't get like too in your business, but like I want to know, like, how do comics, is touring the main source of their income? Like, how do you, like, I guess everyone has a different number, right?
Yeah.
But like, how do you support a family, like doing comedy if you're not like you have to break to make enough money, or could you be like kind of big and like still do really, really well? Like how is like the finances match up your audience? Like,
well, yeah, it depends on what kind of comedy you're doing and how often you're doing it. If you're a comic that does colleges, there's a kind of a shelf life for that. But if you got, 67 colleges lined up at, $4,400 a pop, you can make some money that year. Now you will hate your life because you'll fly into Chicago, you'll rent a car, you'll go to colleges you've never, Middlebury State and Grandview, and the shows will suck. You'll drive to the next one, the show will suck, and you'll make money. Do you want to be a cruise ship comic where you'll live with nice amenities and make a decent chunk of change, but you're off the mainland, you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean for 3.5 weeks out of the month? Your life will be better, but what's your connection to the real world? They'll tell you what kind of material that you can do.
Yeah.
Do you want that? Do you want to be a club comic where it's
the drunk crowd?
Yeah, the drunks on Friday nights, and pay varies, and you're sweating ticket sales. The club owner calls you and says, hey, we only got 12 tickets sold for Saturday. You need to go do more radio, and we can't have you back if you're not. So it's like it's pressure.
Those are real conversations.
Yeah. So it's always going to be pressure, but you can maybe you can do a hodge where you just like you have a kind of Midland podcast where you have a couple advertisers that you clear $1,100 a month with that, and you do stand up and you make another $1,500 with that, and between what you and your wife makes, it works. So I think stand up is as lucrative as people that even it's people that drive Uber. They live. Yeah. So I think stand-ups can do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's
kind of funny thinking about like the starting of stand-up for you. Do you have any like bombing stories? Ooh, shut up, Siri. Do you have any bombing stories that you think of like really shaped your career? Like you had like a big audience and it just fell flat? Any of those?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you start, man, you know, you're always going to be. It's almost like a boxer. Like you start with like 4-round fights, and then you can move to 6-round fights, and then usually 10-round, and then championship or 12-round fights. But that first time that you go from a 4-round fight to a 6-round fight, those extra 6 minutes. I don't know if you ever just shadow box for a minute. It's exhausting.
Man.
So like, I'm sure you're like, when you have to keep stretching yourself out and seeing how much time you can do. I mean, you're gonna. You know, because the first time that you get offered, hey, can you do 30 minutes for $300? You're like, yeah, but you might have 19 minutes of material that works or 16, and you're like, I'll figure it out. But then like,
you gotta hope someone heckles you. For 10
you
minutes.
get there and like your good shit's not working, and you're like 14 minutes in, you're like, I got one more good joke, so I gotta kill like 10 minutes before I can get to that. And you know, you sit there and just you gotta stretch and I remember I was I won Carnival Cruise Line's young comedians thing like early in my career, like a year or two in, maybe a year and a half in. So I was on the cruise ships, but when I got there, I didn't realize that they wanted me to do like a 15-minute totally clean set, which I could kind of barely do because I was not dirty, but adult, and you know, and then they wanted you to do a 30-minute dirty set at midnight, which was a totally different set of jokes. They were like, oh, the same people are going to be at both shows, so you can't repeat the jokes. And I didn't have 45 minutes of jokes, much less 15 segments. Of that is clean, which is like, because I was just taking my dirty jokes and sanitizing them. And so, you know, I remember like, you know, a cruise ship holds like 1,500 people. And like, so I had done my 15-minute clean set and I killed, but I was killing because I burned a lot of like all my good shit. Like I burned all my good shit, like my A shit. Yeah, so like I was starting that half-hour show and I had like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 jokes, and the rest was like, and I was so young in my career, I didn't have anything, and so I'm like killing time trying to talk to the audience, but like when the audience knows you're bombing, they won't help you. You know, oh, you guys together? Just nothing. Oh, is that your wife, sir? Nothing. Like they just,
and that just makes it worse.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, you're gonna stay up there, buddy. And so I was just like bombing, and like it was just, I had nothing, and I know I couldn't see her because it was like, you know, I couldn't see any of the audience, but I know it was probably like a 20-year-old black girl to the left of the stage, and I just hear her go, boring. Oh, like just shit. And it was so quiet. Oh no. And that boring just like stuck in my head for like the rest of my career. And I just was like, I couldn't even like, she wasn't wrong. I had nothing.
She got like PTSD every time you hear that word now.
Yeah, and it was just like, and she yelled it when it was quiet too. It was just like, damn.
Then you had to stay up there for another 10 minutes and figure it out.
Yeah, and I was just like trying to go, well, what's boring? I was trying to have a Q&A with her. That's what. Yeah, I was like, thank God somebody's talking. Yeah.
Was that the last time you ever did a cruise?
No, I did a couple more after that. Yeah. And this is not happening. No, that's not the story I told him. I told a story about a college when I did this not happening.
Yeah, the note taking.
Yeah, the note taking one with this not happening. But was
that on a cruise?
No, that was at a college.
Okay.
But I did a couple. I had a couple bad experiences.
Yeah.
On cruises, just because like I was a young comic out of Miami and we were just wild. You know, like we were almost like feral animals. You know, in terms of like filter, drinking, partying, and just like that was not good for Carnival. So that eventually was the end of that. But it was meant to be.
So I want to go back a little bit because you said you were like pre-med.
Yeah.
So you were like a smart kid.
Not till I got to college and I started really applying myself. Cause I just luckily for me I had a roommate who's a really smart guy. He's a doctor now, and like I was kind of doing the same thing I was my freshman year of college that I was my senior year of high school, just kind of fucking off a little bit and not really taking it seriously, and just I remember just looking at him and him telling me his grades the first half of the first semester. And I was like, oh, he's been hanging with me, but he's been getting A's and I've been getting C's. And I was like, maybe it was a competitive thing, but I was just like, why can't I get A's? You know, and like that kind of lit a fire under me to just like, I don't even know if I was that passionate about medicine, but just more of just like, I'm not going to go out like a just a dude that can't compete,
like
I'm gonna go out even if I don't want to do this. I'm gonna at least have the ability to do it if I want. So that kind of got me into science because I was never super interested in it until I got to college. So ended up getting my degree in that, and then after that I was like, well, I got to do something with this.
Yeah.
And went to grad school and then taught middle school.
Oh wow. So where did you grow up?
Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised. Yeah. So I grew up in Cleveland and went to school in Mississippi for 2 years, and then my last 2 years I went to Brown up in Rhode Island. Did my last 2 years up there.
Oh wow.
So did you have to have some tough conversations when you were like, hey, I got this great career in medical studies, but I'm gonna be a comedian now? Did you ever have to talk to anyone about that?
No, you would think, but man, my parents were so supportive. I mean, it kind of like you think you're gonna have that, like, I'm gonna follow my dreams and you can't stop me. And my parents like, go do it, you got this. And I was like, all right, you know, I was like, okay, crazy. Now I gotta do it. But yeah, my mom was super supportive, and my mom was like, yeah, I always thought you were gonna do something with entertainment. I had never thought about that or intimated that to her, but you know, by the time I told my parents that I was doing stand-up, or even my roommate, I've been doing it for probably about 6 months. I had just been sneaking. I was telling them I was going on dates, and I would just go do stand-up because I didn't want anybody to see me. I was like still learning, you know?
Yeah. Did you have anybody you knew at the early shows? And did that put pressure on you?
No, and that's the thing that I tell young comics. Like, personally, I can't tell you how to live your life, but I didn't tell anybody that I was doing open mics. I feel like that's like a very personal experience, and I couldn't imagine getting ready to do my first few sets, but then also trying to make sure that like I'm talking to my friends so they're not bored, and do you want something else to drink? Like, I don't want, it's just like you just getting focused. If you need to step outside for a little while and get some fresh air and get ready to go do your set, I mean, it's a really nerve-wracking thing, and I wouldn't want to like
look out and
have
see your
people there, just like my mom is there and watching me bomb in a dive bar in the corner. Go, baby. Yeah, next to the jukebox. Like, I don't want to do that. So like,
I know my parents would be the type to like yell at somebody if they were heckling or something too, and then it's just like a problem.
Yeah, my parents be like, nah, you just weren't funny, bro. You just gotta go back to the.
And that's the thing. It's like you might
maybe the one screaming
you probably
boring.
Wouldn't be
like,
funny.
My mom's like, boring.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be funny the first. You're not good really at anything the first time you do it. I mean, it's fucking bowling. I mean, it takes
a little bit.
Yeah, to like, in practice.
Well, a lot of bit.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first joke you ever had that like really hit? Can you remember it?
Yeah. And it's such a basic joke, but it was the first time I ever had a joke that I knew
like you got
that I knew would work. I used to tell this story about when I got my new car and how I figured out I was lactose intolerant that day because I bought Starbucks and I was in Miami traffic in my new car and I was playing with shit. And and I almost I literally was about to shit my pants because I didn't know, because this was so long ago that like I didn't really barely drink coffee, and like black dudes did not go to Starbucks.
And get a mocha
so I got one and I didn't know what it was, and I've been lactose intolerant my whole life, and it's just like the way that hot milk hit my stomach was just so real. And I remember telling that story. I used to close on that for years, and like even when I was tired of doing the joke, I used to love doing it because like the joy that it brought people, because I think everybody, man, woman, black, white, has had to either pee or poop at some point. And it seems juvenile, but it's such a common experience of just like, sometimes like when I'm in traffic or like you ever been on the highway and like your direction of the highway is clear, but like the other side of the highway is like in jam-packed traffic, and you're like, I'm glad I'm not going that way. But I was looking, I'm like, how many people over there have to shit? Because you've seen how long the line is, and you're like, they don't even know. But somebody, it's hundreds of cars. Somebody got that shit.
And it's always in traffic.
Yeah, and they skip the stop. They're like, oh, I'm gonna shit the next stop, and then they're like, oh god, yeah, dude. And so like that joke just resonated with, and I remember like
everybody's almost shit themselves.
Yeah, or just like and having that conversation with yourself, like, dude, do I just get out and just shit?
Just go.
Or like, I can't shit in the car. You know, it's just like all these things, and like people would be, it didn't matter. People like it would just hit certain people. Like people would be pounding the table. Old black man would taking their glasses off, wiping tears. Old white ladies laugh. It just like it was just one of those jokes. So it's like that was like the first joke. I had shorter jokes that always worked about teaching. But like that story that I would close on,
Did you run with it for a while?
Oh yeah, for a couple of years. I closed on that for years. Yeah, that was just until I felt like I just, people had seen me before and seen me tell it. But yeah, that story just, man, that story used to kill people.
So do you have anyone like who checks your jokes? Like, how do you know it's funny?
Yeah, do comedians call each other?
Like, what's your process like?
Yeah. I always wanted that.
Do you recite it over and over again to get the cadence right? Like, what is like?
What I'll do is I'll write a note, like just a little bit of a note to myself if I think something's funny. So I'll just put, almost crashed on the way to Sam's podcast. So it'll be in my notes. And every time I scroll my notes for a week or two, I'll see that and I'll be like, oh yeah, what happened? Okay, what would be funny about that? And I play with it and I'll be like, maybe that's a line. And then so either at a mic or if it's appropriate during my show, I'll sneak it in just to see if it resonates at all. And so like if I like tonight on the show, I'll be like, oh man, the streets are crazy. I almost crashed on the way to this podcast. And then I throw that line in. Even if I have nothing after that, I'll just see if it gets a titter. People are like, yeah. And people are like, oh, tell me more. I'm like, okay, well, that's a thing. So I'll go back and play with it some more and keep coming back. And then eventually it'll be a bit. Some people write their jokes all the way out. For me, I feel like a lot of times my jokes are kind of thoughts that are like puzzle pieces that are kind of all over the place. And eventually I can take them and put together a starting. But it's kind of a weird way how my brain works. But it's slowly over time, but I just make sure that I write down everything, even if it seems kind of innocuous or just makes no sense at the time. I'll just be like, coffee makes you shit. And then that's all it'll be there. And then eventually I'll see something else in my notes where I'll be like, I'll see somebody having a bad first date and I'll be like, oh dude, that would be terrible to have that. And then I'll maybe think about the time I was on a date night and shit, and then I'll have that coffee line that just sat in my phone for a year that will work its way into that story some way. So it's like a real story with like funny little things that I've thought of in there. But I always try and be completely truthful with what I'm saying because just the way my brain works, I don't remember jokes. I remember things that are personal to me. Yeah, right. So that's just how I write. But some people are prolific joke writers and they have jokes. Yeah.
So one thing I was looking into when we decided to do this, so you do a podcast with Frank Caliendo.
Yes.
How did that relationship come about? Because, I mean, he was, I think from like, so he kind of blew up right around when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So he was like one of the first comedians I was like really familiar with. Yeah. So like to me, his name like just really rings the bells for me. Yeah. So is that just another guy that you were just familiar with? Like you just saw him all the time? Or?
No, Frank and I, obviously I had known Frank years before I met him, but he and I both do a radio show called Bob and Tom. Yeah. And I've been doing Bob and Tom for, I do a weekly call-in segment with them, and I have been for a couple years now, and maybe like 6-7 years. And so does Frank. Frank calls in and does their show as well. So they have a radio conference every year, and Frank and I met at this radio conference, started talking, ended up going to dinner and talked forever. And from there, he and I were like, oh, we should probably do a podcast. And, it took a couple months to get off the ground. But Frank's one of those guys, if he's going to do something, he is going to do it. Like he 100%. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. And he's, everything's so professional. He's a fun guy, but he doesn't F around, so... Mm-hmm. Once we started going, we got the artwork and the concept of it. I mean, it's been going really well. So we're gonna pick back up the first of next year. But it was just from a meeting at a radio conference, and we just been cool ever since. And now I go down to Arizona and hang out at his house, which is a sprawling layout. He's doing fine. Yeah, Frank's doing fine.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because that was interesting to me because when I was doing all this, it's just because he's one of those guys that just like his name rings a lot of bells for me. Yeah. But yeah, is there anybody like that for you that like growing up that was your comedian, like that was your childhood favorite, or did you not watch it growing up? Like
no, I mean I did watch stand up So I guess maybe like when I was a young adult, I remember getting one of Chris Rock's first albums. And it was the one right.
Albums, not even like a special.
It was. Yeah, I called it an album,
then.
but it was a CD, definitely. Yeah.
Times have changed.
Yeah, dude, and so I remember just like listening to it and just he had such an interesting take on things. I think that his perspective on just like because I remember just being a kid and being like, why is that? But I didn't really have the words to put things. Like I was like, I don't feel like that makes sense, but everybody's acting like it does. So I think his voice was like the first like black voice that I really heard that just like resonated with me in that way. So I would say if it's a comic that like really influenced me, it was Chris. And then me, him, and Hannibal did a show at the Apollo, and that was like an experience. That was like one of the things I'll never forget, because it was like just like, first of all, growing up in Cleveland, watching Showtime at the Apollo, and then like rubbing the stump and going out on stage with my the guy that influenced me. Is just
did you have the opportunity to sit down and tell him?
Like, we talked, and I definitely Hannibal made fun of me. He's like, yeah, dude, you fanboyed out, because he was talking to me about one of my jokes. I was like, yeah, okay, like I had nothing.
Froze up.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's
but
funny.
It's it's like what a weird day. One of my only regrets from that day is I went and did another set after that, and I didn't go somewhere and just sit and let that soak in. And I think that has something to do with just comedians.
Go.
Yeah, or just like not willing to accept positivity for certain parts, and just like just don't acknowledge something when it's really wonderful. Just keep going. And I kind of understand where that mentality comes from, but I really wish I kind of breathed it in a little bit that day. That was a really cool day.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing a few things on Twitter about Hannibal. Is that joke? Is the joke about Bill Cosby? Did he really start that for real? Is that like?
What are you talking about?
Like Bill Cosby getting in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, well,
there's a joke about he made a joke about it, and then so people are like tying it in. I don't know if he did it after or he did it before, but like.
Oh, so like people are saying that he like started the accusations?
Yeah, like he's the one that got him in jail. Is that true?
No.
Or he's ready going to go to jail. Yeah. And Hannibal just heard about it and it's just like, all right, this is be hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak on that much because I know Hannibal's done with that. Okay. But, it's just there. I always say like the truth is like, it's like if grape juice stain on a white rug, like it's always gonna be there. You can cover that shit up with a rug, or you can cover it with a couch, but that shit's there. Yeah. So it's almost like the whistleblower stuff with the Trump stuff now. Everybody's like, who's the whistleblower? It's like, it doesn't matter. There's been 40 people that have corroborated that story at this point. It's like, I think from what I know, he made a comment that. And if you listen to why Eddie Murphy took shots on Saturday Night Live last week, and I've listened to D.L. Hughley talk about he had a negative interaction with him on his show, and I listened to this black woman talking about whoever the lead was on this old movie Tommy Davidson was in called Booty Call, that Bill Cosby called her and was saying, oh, you're making black people look bad. And I think that there's, whether it's Eddie Murphy or Hannibal or DL or this woman whose name I can't recall, no matter how you feel about it, he made a certain segment of the population feel bad about themselves with the whole pull your pants up and don't be a thug and all that kind of that air quotes stuff. And, I think a lot of comics that also have access to microphones and access to audiences are like, dude, and you could pull this up because it's on, anybody listening, just go to D.L. Hughley talks about Cosby. I think it was on Vlad TV. But D.L. was like, hey, man, I use the N-word, but I don't, at least I don't have women waking up half naked with their underwear on backwards wondering what happened. Yeah. And so if you're going to...
It's a fucking haymaker.
Yeah, look, man, dude. People, whatever you're doing is out there. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
and so if he didn't chastise people for using the word "damn it" on stage while that's he's being accused of that, he might not have been in this position. But when you keep telling people to live this righteous lifestyle, and everybody's like, not only do you not live a righteous lifestyle, you should probably be in jail right now, dude. Like, I think that's where a lot of that came from. If you kept your mouth shut, he might have got away with it, you know? But I think whether it was the Hannibal thing or something before that, I think that it was just a blogger was at that show and looked it up. And if there was nothing there, it would have gone away. But if you Google Bill Cosby accusation and 55 things come up and you go, why isn't anybody reported on this? Then at that point, whoever the whistleblower is doesn't matter. At that point, we got the transcript from Ukraine at that point.
Yeah.
So whoever found it doesn't mean shit. So I think Hannibal. I think he was just tired of answering. He didn't mind speaking on it, but I think he was just tired of answering questions about it. And I mean, at the end, I have a personal friend that had an interaction with him that was negative, but familiar to anybody that's heard other interactions with him in terms of what he's been accused of. So according to this person, who is a famous person and would have no reason to lie, it seemed pretty real to me.
Wow.
So and same MO, same her story checked out and everything. So
which is sad and unfortunate, because I remember hearing about it. I'm like, okay, this is funny, because I saw the clip on Twitter, and then like looking it up and then being like, okay, like once you start getting past like 10 people, like they all can't be lying, bro. Because like you think, let's say someone's paying to end his career, whatever people are making up on like the internet. It's like, okay, like, I mean, somebody might have the budget, but like, all right, after 10 people, you gotta have a lot of money to get 30, right? And then famous people to go out of their like
and
comfortable life to go say
who
this.
would do that? Yeah, if they wouldn't,
who would do that if it wasn't like true? Like even with like lately with R. Kelly stuff, I'm just like, yeah, like obviously, like he's been wilding for years,
for decades, to the point where, I mean, that's just a totally other thing. It's like you look at, men with power, and I mean the R. Kelly thing. I mean, it's. I was telling. I don't know if I was talking about it on the talk show or not, but people are like, I can't believe R. Kelly, or I can't believe what happened with the U.S. gymnastics team or the Catholic Church or what happened at Penn State. But what you always have is a group of children that are vulnerable because they're not looked at as valuable in society. Black girls in Chicago, poor kids, on a summer program at Penn State with Jerry Sandusky. I even watched that documentary on the women's Olympic team with the Dr. Larry Nassar, and it just shows you that like there is a network of many adults that help with the facilitation of child rape. Like Larry Nassar is a 100-pound weakling. Like he couldn't do that. R. Kelly can't read. He's not a person. You need people that are able to drive girls to different locations, fly girls different places, check them into different hotels. This is a network of people. Do you think like the Jerry Sandusky thing, like that happened for years? Like how many people?
And a lot of people
saw
knew about
him
it too.
walking around. So a dude walked in the shower and saw him doing it.
Yeah. And
went home and had dinner. Like, I mean, this is like, hey, we have the one person, Joe Paterno, R. Kelly. It's it's secretaries. Like, how many people saw an Olympian leaving this guy's office in tears and was like, oh, do we need a schedule for another appointment? Like, this is thousands of people that are allowing this to happen on a daily basis. And, we need to confront that just as much as, like, the people that are, like, the lightning rods. The R. Kelly, yes, what he did was monstrous. But, like, all the other people that for years facilitated this behavior, like, you can't just how many people would even have access to one Olympian once in their life?
Yeah.
And to allow this little twerp to have access to molest hundreds of them. And then, like, I was watching. If you watch the documentary, I mean,
It's crazy, yo.
these women were coming forward, and like, people were like on their Facebook page calling them whores, like people with gold medals. So there's something ingrained in our human psyche that whether it's black folks in Chicago or white suburban housewives up there at Michigan State calling a 20-year-old, balance beam specialist a whore, that we allow for our children to be raped. And until we figure out why that is and why that is allowed to go on for decades, we're not going to get anywhere. Because there'll always be another Jeffrey Epstein, rich creepy dude that likes young girls
and was helping a whole bunch of people.
He's an example of what you're talking about. He was a facilitator, or at least part of a team of facilitators.
Yeah. If you got money, you can do whatever you want. He had his own island where he was flying girls in and out of. And in order to have an island, you need pilots, you need people working on that island, you need people that see stuff, that don't see stuff. So again, it wasn't Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just snatching these girls up by the wrist and throwing them on a plane and then flying the plane. Like, who's fueling that plane? Who's over the flight logs? Who's questioning the cargo on this plane? Like, what? Why are there nothing but 15-year-old girls on this island and grown rich men? Stop it, dog.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely
and
weird.
It's, like, we could go down for hours and just name after name after name of these people that are in powerful positions and have done very evil things and are not in jail. And we could go down names and names. And
Harvey Weinstein still ain't in jail.
I was about to say, he's still walking around.
I saw him eating ice cream sundae yesterday on TMZ. Like, he's chilling.
What's even crazier about that situation is you're talking about an individual who did things to other celebrities.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
and still got away with it. So it's like there's really nothing you can do, because you're talking about people that have either a support group or a following or can get a message out there, and they're still not able to break through.
And people still calling them liars.
Yeah.
I mean, how many women stood up to Harvey Weinstein and had their career tanked? Because that's the thing. It's like, Harvey Weinstein's just a dude. The fact that Harvey Weinstein can pick up a phone and end your career, it's like the other person is complicit in that as well.
Yeah.
So Harvey Weinstein got his power from other people because they wanted to continue to make money. So if Harvey Weinstein says, don't book Sam anymore because he's lying, and then you never work again a day in your life after having 2 Emmy-nominated roles, and all of a sudden you don't work again.
Yeah. Like,
is that Harvey Weinstein or the people around him? So a lot of people are compliant in this, and we're just sitting here like, yeah, Harvey, let's get... Yeah, so Harvey Weinstein is dude a Walker, Bill Cosby is half-blind dude, and R. Kelly who can't read. Those are the 3... No, there's thousands of people that are complicit in this. People picking girls up, lying, making people disappear, making documents disappear. So, I think it's a much bigger problem that people aren't willing to talk about. But because they aren't willing to talk about it, it'll keep going forever.
Yeah,
should we try to switch up to a more positive conversation?
I mean, that's just real life. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Man.
No, it's heavy.
Keep having that conversation forever.
I mean, that's heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, one day it'll get fixed. I think when people change the conversation what loyalty means and what money means, like, especially, like, I'm not going to get too much, but when you see things and how much money was sent or, like, a promotion, like, it's just, like, weird things people will sacrifice things for. Because, like, someone knows what you value. Like, and I feel like all these men are just manipulators and understand leverage and understand, like, okay, if I give this person who's a nobody executive a call and tell him, I'll put you in Disney executive, which with a $15,000 pay bump, but, like, now you work at Disney, now you have a credit. Like, people will, like, not book Sam anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, when you look at the grand scheme of your life and you think about what you're sacrificing and what you're allowing to happen for, like, short-term goals, like, people are massive manipulators. I've been around them. Like, they just know what to say, what to do, and how to, like, if they know your weakness or know your points, like, you'd be surprised. Like, and, like, when culture is created, like, you listen to old, like, Nazi Germany, like, generals. Like, the culture was just created. Like, you just didn't know what you really did believe in. You just knew if you wanted to take care of your family, and they knew it was wrong. But like the culture is like, well, if out of 100 people, 2 people think it's wrong, you're just outnumbered.
Yeah.
And then like you could be subjected to very scary things, but also like some people are able to turn off that side of them and like lose empathy because it's just a job, or and then some people might start creating guilt and anger and then take it out on other people and they know they're wrong. It's human, like it's like human. I feel like how we work, but it's funny when you think about it. It's like, man, once a culture is created, like yes, people know what R. Kelly's been doing.
Right.
They knew what he was doing when he was around Aaliyah.
Yeah, but it's like
no one's oblivious to what he was doing.
Right, but it's power. It's like it's power and the ability to change somebody's life. If you and your family has grown up in poverty on South Side or North Side of Chicago, or I think he was West Side actually. But if you've grown up with nothing and no one that you've ever known has had anything, and no one that you've ever known will have anything, and all of a sudden you have access to the biggest R&B singer of our lifetime, probably, especially back then.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna say, "Hey, can I just?" Because I mean, they talked. When you talk about Nazi Germany and stuff like that, it seems like a leap, but what it really is it's the same mentality, and that you don't have everybody saying, I am helping to exterminate Jewish people. What you do is you have somebody that says, I drive a truck from this building to that building.
Exactly.
And that's all I do. I don't ask questions. I don't ask what's in the back. I don't ask why they never got back in the truck. I don't ask why everybody back there is crying.
I just drive the truck.
I drive the truck, and then somebody gives me enough more money than anybody in my family's ever had in the palm of their hand. That's all I know. And that's what's happening with the R. Kelly thing. I take this girl who gets in the car. We don't talk. I drive her to this hotel. I give her the room key. I drive away. I don't know how old she was. She could have been 19. She could have been 15. That's not my business, dog. It's the same mentality. So, it's just like when you have a society with people that have everything and people that don't have shit, you're always going to have the people that don't have shit willing to do whatever they have to do as long as they can distance themselves from it by saying, hey, dude, all I know is that there's a camp at Penn State and it's a bunch of poor Black and Hispanic kids, and I just I take them to the playground, and then I drop them off at Jerry's house, and that's all I know. I don't know what happens after that. I don't know why that kid spent the night at his house. Maybe they watch movies. That's not my business.
And they'll kind of picture like it's just a great opportunity for them. They need to see like they flip the story too, and make it seem like it means more to them to be at Penn State versus whatever happens to them.
Yeah,
I feel also like a lot of people like who get hurt also end up like not feeling sorry for other people who are getting like I've heard old women be like, oh, don't worry about it, girl, like it's what men do. I'm like, nah, that's not what men are supposed to be doing. Don't tell no little girl that. Like that's not okay.
Yeah, that's old school indoctrination, dude.
Right?
Because
it
happened
to her.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the times when you hear about situations where like if a pimp wants a new girl, he sends one of his girls. He doesn't send himself. He sends a girl that can. Oh, girl, come here, girl. I know he hit you, but like,
make some money.
Yeah, it's the way that you have a buffer between you and the power structure that kind of acclimates and makes whatever foulness is happening seem normal and seem okay. And it's been going on since the beginning of time. And until there's a power structure, and I think things will be a little different in that. In terms of like the whole Me Too thing, that like, I don't think things are like they were in the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s. I think now people do watch how they act at office parties. As you used to be able to just go grab your secretary's ass. What was she going to do? There's no such thing as HR. Yeah. But now there is. You can lose your gig. So I do think behavior has changed. I mean, I look at the office dynamic. I work in an office of probably, not office, but a TV show of, I don't know, 45 people. And our holiday parties are like, I talk to people and they're like, I'm having 2 beers and I'm leaving, or I'm not drinking at all. I stopped drinking, but my girl always had a rule. She didn't really drink anymore. She didn't really drink at all. It never has. But she was like, she had a rule like she never takes a picture with a drink in her hand, at a company event. Like any pictures, anything recorded now can and will be used against you. And so you need to go in. I don't want to hear it. It's 2020, dog. I don't want to hear none of that. I didn't know shit. None of that. Take your arm.
You're now aware.
Yeah, don't get drunk and put your arm around your boss.
Arms
don't,
is here,
dude. Yeah, and people are like, well, that's really restrictive, dude. If you want to wild out and party, go do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
Drive 30 miles out, get a hotel room, and do whatever you need to do. Lock the door and get whatever drinks and drugs you need and have at it. But like you acting like that with coworkers or anybody in general, you're going to get
playing
caught.
a dangerous game,
Dude.
Yeah.
Everything's on camera. This we talking right now on camera.
Yeah.
Facts.
So
watch
you know
what you say,
it is what it is, and there's no more that. My homeboy John Vargas, he's a hilarious comic. He's a brilliant guy because he's able to put such complex thoughts into such a succinct way. But he said, "Do you know how old we are, Al?" And I go, "How old?" And he goes, "We're at the age where you can't say I didn't know. Anything you do right now, you know the ramifications.
Yeah.
It might work out good, it might not. But if you say, dude, I'm gonna go grab this girl's booty at the bar. She got a nice booty. You could do it." But you know
what you're doing.
you know the
Yeah.
ramifications. You could lose your gig. Somebody could turn around and knock you out.
Yeah.
She could sue you. And you could end up paying whatever.
Yeah.
You now know what's going on. So anything you do, whether it's cheating on your chick, go for it. If it's worth it to you, have at it. But the ramifications might be you sleeping in a studio apartment while your kids are across the country and your wife is now with another dude in your house, and you're paying them $2,500 a month for the rest of your life.
Live in your house.
So I hope it was worth it, but you knew what the deal was. So
clip that.
So go with it, but just don't. I don't want to hear any crying on the back end because at this point we know the ramifications, positive and negative, to almost everything.
Yeah. To kind of switch up the topic of conversation a little bit. So you have kids and you have like family and you're doing a lot of different things. What is your source of motivation? Is it providing for your family, or is it achieving goals that you set for yourself?
I think it's always just you
spoke to the competitive thing earlier.
Yeah, but it's a competition. I think within yourself. I wrote and published a children's book this year. I wrote.
Congrats on that.
Thanks, man.
Congrats.
I wrote a movie script.
Wow.
I'm in the process of finishing up this hour special, and I do 50 weeks of 3 hours of live national TV a day, and it's like I have goals about where I want to be, and it's not a competitive thing with my friends. It's like, well, what do I want to do next year? There's some things with marketing that I'm interested in doing, but I think what it all comes down to is just being passionate about life, and I think that passion will change with different things. But I think you can immediately see when you've met a human being that is passionless and doesn't really have anything that they want to do. You can play video games, or you can play video games with a purpose. You can try and be building your Twitch account or whatever, whatever you're doing, or blog. You can do whatever you want and find. But once you're passionate, I think everything else will fall into place. I think you see the people that are kind of adrift, that don't really know what they want to do because they've been kind of disillusioned by the world, and their parents have told them they need to be a dentist, but they kind of want to do this, but they need to make money, so they're kind of just doing this to make money, and they seem lost. But it's like I look at the setup that you guys have here, the dynamics that you guys have, and I'm sure that spills into other parts of your life, and being willing to make an investment not only with your time but with your money and your mind and your heart. It's like, how could you go wrong with that? Who cares about your act? If you're like, man, I really like going to the beach and just painting, whether you sell any of that or not, who's happier, that person or somebody that just went and just traded stocks and made a bunch of money, but they have an empty life? I don't know. They have more stuff, they have more comfort, they might have health insurance, but I don't know if just doing something to do it, to kill time while you're on the planet, is the move anymore. Yeah. And I think we saw that, unfortunately, with our grandparents especially. They probably did jobs they weren't that passionate about. It's like, oh, my grandfather worked at a steel mill for 55 years. I'm like, I don't know if every day he was super pumped to go weld a fucking, a bumper onto a fucking Chrysler or some shit.
Yeah.
But he did it. And now, like, we have an opportunity to make money talking shit with your homeboy.
Yeah.
Like, that should be, like, what a gift. And, like, so why would you waste that? So I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to not only sustain yourself, but also, like, sustain your passion and keep your creative spirit going. And, like, why would you not do that?
I think like a lot of young people, but people in general, like we make up stories that like, oh, I have to make money. Well, who told you have to make money? Who told you need to have a house? Who told you? Like we make up these stories to like either create like a wall or an excuse for us not to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, you got to graduate by 22.
All this stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I've always been an individual who didn't conform. It was like, it's still hard for me, but it was always hard. So like, you know, I dropped out of college. I didn't really go. I was like 17. But like I was surrounded by I have a twin sister who's a 4.0 student is in medical school right now. So like twin sister, remember, same age, 4.0, and I'm like failing. Right? So that's weird. All my friends.
I don't think that's weird. I think it's you're showing the world that you don't give a shit about what you're doing. So
I was like, I didn't give one,
yeah.
right? And I was like, yeah, I'm not only shit. But all my friends are also smart, right? But then, you know, me being an entrepreneur and like starting a business when I was 17 and growing to like 30 people, like, and then doing a restaurant next, and like everyone just like, yo, like, what are you doing? This guy came to me and like, he said he likes cars and like, and then I was like, all right, I'll talk to you for like 10 minutes. He's like, can we talk real quick about how you got your business started? He's like, give me the list of like, oh, your parents are rich. No, my parents are Jamaica. We're not fucking rich. We're fucking zero. Try that again. No, I'm not adopted. Like, no investor. Nope. So like, you know, people like, I told him like, whatever you do, like, don't let the excuses you make stop you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because like you already have a million people telling you anything you're gonna do is not gonna work. It's a dumb idea. But like the fact that you're giving yourself so many excuses for you not to do, I'm really gonna challenge you. Do you actually want to do it, or do you want to talk about doing it? Are you like, are motivated, or do you like deep down know like you don't have it, or do you deep down know you do have it, and you just need someone like me to tell you like, yo, stop creating excuses. She's like, I don't know how to make a business. I'm like, that's Googleable.
Yeah.
Like we spent 7 minutes of this conversation with Googleable questions. Like,
and you should tell them that. Yeah, I would have told that person, male or female, I would have been like, these aren't questions for me. These are questions for Google. And like, once you've answered these, like that'll at least show me that you're serious. Because if you're asking questions about stuff that you could have just found out, like, hey, how do I get to the airport from here? You don't need to get to the airport that bad.
Yeah,
you know, if you really need to get to the airport, you're gonna figure that shit the fuck out.
Right.
And if he really wanted to start a business,
he really would have.
Yeah, he would have watched. He would have watched. There's
watch half a YouTube video and figure that
dude,
shit out.
you can go to Skillshare, which I do.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm doing an ad, and I like when I look at my online marketing or thing. You can take a 4-hour class, and then break it up into 5 minutes. Listen to it while you're taking a shit, whatever. When you're driving, like if you want to do something, you will do it. It's over. If you want to get a 6-pack by next beach time next year, you will do it. You will eat nothing but chicken breasts and greens and half a scoop of brown rice, and you'll do sit-ups and you'll have a 6-pack. I don't want a 6-pack that bad. I don't have a 6-pack. I don't want that bad.
Yeah.
I wanted to write a script, and I sat down and I did it. I worked on planes. I worked while in between shows, and it's done. Yeah. You know, and it's like when I want to write a kid's book, I sat down with an illustrator. It's done. The things you want to do will get done. If you want to get drunk and chase chicks, you will do that, and your life will reflect that. So, and that's fine too. But I don't, I respect the fact that you realize that college wasn't the thing you want to do. Rather than like doing what most people do, they go to college because they're told that they're going to. They incur crazy debt, and now they have to do something that they're not passionate about because they have this fucking Game of Thrones doomsday cloud over their fucking 20s and 30s. Yeah. You know, I'm glad you got out. Fuck that. College ain't no guarantee.
College ain't no fucking joke. It ain't no guarantee. And like, I was just like, I'd rather be a quote unquote in their books a failure than like whatever, right? Like I've always been an individual, and I'm trying to like encourage people, but what I realized is that I can't want it for anybody else. And I'm like, yo, like, I listened to Ben Baller. He has a podcast, and he says this is not a practice life, and he's like, a lot of people like live life like it's a practice. Like, oh, let me kind of halfway figure shit out, and then like die and think you get another one. And it's like we don't know that. Yeah. So like he was like, you don't have to be rich. It's none of that. But whatever you want to do, like you're saying, is like it's not a practice life. So you can't like lie your Dale around. Kind of want to do comedy. Like you got to go to the set. You got to go to the show and then do it if you want. And then, and I always tell people like time doesn't wait. So the faster you do something, right, with consistent effort, the faster you figure out if you want to do it or not. Like, if you take 3 years to get fit, kind of, but you can that shit in a year. Like, do you want in that? Like, maybe you should try to get abs. Like, I don't want abs. Really. I just want to be able to run like a 8-minute mile. Great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Now you know what you want to do.
And then do it quickly. I'm like, yo, time is like on your side once you know how to use it. Like, because it's all made up, right? But we have to abide by it because it's what society abides by. But I see people like kind of want to do this, kind of want to do that. And I'm like, listen, like, you know, now that you're not doing what society told you, you're on your own time clock. Now you don't have the system what you're used to. School is a system.
Yeah.
Like, it preps you to be an employee. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm not mad about people who are being employees. I think actually you need people who like need marching orders. But if you're not that person, you're a creative thinker, outside the box thinker, think your strategies are better, humble enough to understand that and like play by the game, then like you need your own fire. So when Sam, you know, quit his job and kind of dropped out of school and was like, well, we should do a podcast. I was like, what did I tell you? I was like, all right, you do it. And I'm going to be with you, but like, we got to do it. Dude.
You got to do it. Yeah.
It's not going to be like, we kind of have a podcast. And like, he was like telling me like, yeah, everyone has a podcast, do it for 2 weeks and it stops. Really? Right. And it's just like, so you did 2 episodes and you think that like,
think you made it?
You think you made it, or you like, oh, it didn't work, and it's like, well, you did 2 episodes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it goes beyond, you know, obviously we're in entertainment, so we always talk about that, but just in general, like I think if you just approach everything that you're interested in doing, everything that you want to do, every interaction that you have with somebody, every piece of advice that you almost get from somebody, including me on this podcast or whatever, it's like whoever is telling you, unless they're like beyond a blood relative, somebody that's close, somebody that you genuinely think cares about you as much or more than they care about themselves, no one gives a shit. Like, everybody, the advice they give you is advice that they kind of got from their granddad and kind of got from Joe Rogan. Like, dude, no one can tell you about your life except for you. And no one really knows what they're... Think about it. I remember listening to Mark Maron talking about the first time he told his manager or his agent he was going to quit stand-up and do a podcast, and his manager was like, dude, what is a podcast, first of all? Like, the idea of somebody went into somebody's office and was like, yo, I'm going to invent an app where strangers let other people get in their car and they drive them places, and that's going to be the app. And they'd be like, it's called a taxi, get the fuck out of my office. Yeah, like, taxis are no longer a thing because that idea somebody had and they realized it worked. Airbnb. I'm going to let somebody else sleep in my fucking bed. Who would do that? Turns out a lot of people. You know? Yeah. But it's like no one knows until everybody knows. So at that point, who's really an expert in anything? You look at I'm a big hoops fan. In the NBA, there used to be you put out 2 7-foot centers, walk the ball up the court, pound it down low, he'd kick it back out. Now, I think Dame Lillard hit 5 threes in the first quarter. Like, the game isn't played like... They used to run the wishbone in football with 3 fucking fat white dudes. Full back dive, 2 yards at a time. There was no 5 wide out. It's like everything evolves and changes, but somebody's got to be the first to do it. Yeah. And until then, how do you think the first offensive coordinator is like, Coach, I know we've been running the ball. You know, we two passes a game, but how about if we get 5 wide receivers? They're like, hold up, 5. We don't even have 5 wide receivers on the. Get out of here, you're fired. It doesn't work until it works. Until they play a team that lines up 5 wide receivers and they have no defense and they get beat 73-0. Guess who they're recruiting next year? Wide receivers and cornerbacks. Yeah, that's what it is. No one knows shit until it happens. So don't listen to anybody because no one knows what the fuck they're talking about. We're on a rock spinning around a fucking star in the middle of blackness.
That's all we know.
Don't tell me you know what the fuck is happening right now because you don't.
That's deep,
man. That shit's powerful.
I agree.
I mean, like,
I key with that shit.
Like, basketball's like a perfect example of that because, like, you could even look at Steph Curry and you're like, yo, what's this fucking like professional swimmer doing out here?
Exactly.
8 threes a game.
He would probably be considered too small for swimming. You look at, I think Michael Phelps is like 6'5". Like, you need to have some length. Yeah. So he
just comes in the game, and all of a sudden, 8 threes a game is normal, and you have to be a point guard that can hit 40%. Or else
you have to close your eyes and shoot from half court. And
and then you see dudes like Trae Young who are even smaller than Steph out here averaging 25. It's like Spud Webb really might be MVP next year. Like if we keep on this fucking track,
it's a different league. Yeah, you think about the smaller guards that that was the thing with the big guards is like you needed a 6'6" kind of Jalen Rose kind of a 6'9" kind of because they were getting pounded because you could just elbow a guy and like it would be a foul, but like you could like really get hurt playing. Steph Curry would have really, especially you think about like the way the 80s used to be, where they'd be like, if you come in the lane, we have two guys. You look at like the way, and not to make this a sports thing, but like, you look at the way like power forwards used to look. They used to look like bouncers, like Charles Oakley and the big Dumars, jacked 6'8" Anthony Mason, those kind of looking guys, and like. Now forwards are like Chris Bosh, kind of slender, almost like swimmer build. Guys that can step out, hit a three, come in, still have length, grab a board,
it's all about quickness now.
Yeah, and the game's evolved, just like every fucking Tiger Woods evolved golf. Everything really evolves, and like for you trying to meet some standard, you know, if you were a kid or you wanted to be a coach and you were coming up 2 years before Steph Curry and you're like following coaches that you liked. You know, that are not, you know, I like this coach. He had a ball control offense. It's like by the time Steph Curry comes out, your entire lineage of knowledge is outdated.
Yeah, exactly.
You've wasted your whole life because now the way that people play basketball or run their business is gone. The idea of like, oh, you go up and you shake a man's hand and you sell him a vacuum cleaner. No, you get a viral thing and you have people come to your business. You go online. And so like anybody that was used to selling things door to door at sales conferences, their entire life has been a waste. So you should not be taking advice from that person because they're looking for advice on how to fucking pay the rent next month. Yeah. You should be figuring out what's next and what's right for you. And anybody that tells you that'll never work, that's good. That's great. Well, we'll see. And maybe it won't, but maybe it will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's possible. So you just have that natural. I think a lot of people who make the world move around, right? Like, or, you know, climb a couple mountains in their lifetime has that internal, like, yo, like, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do at the end of the day, right? Because, like, I just agree with it. Like, I'm younger, but, like, I have a lot of older friends, and I just, like, watch, and, like, I watch people who, like, listen to too many people and be, like, unhappy. I'm like, dude, like, you're asking, like, one of my friends, I don't mention his name, but he's asking a 23-year-old about what he'd be doing with his next step. And I'm like, well, listen, like, I don't have too much context on you. 1, 2 is like the context I do have. I'm probably the 10th person you've asked today. Like, what the fuck you want to do, bro? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you own it, 2, like then it creates learning experiences. Like he's not up to anything, so like he blames everybody else. He listens to everybody. I'm like, well, the shit, bro. Well, fuck. Like you're not gonna like ever know what to do because like you know you just keep saying, well, like he told me that I should have made a left turn. Yeah. So now,
that's a good way to never take blame. And, you know, it's like, well, dude, I would have made it if I hadn't listened to you. I think you had foresight. Both of you guys had foresight early to be like, well, this is what we want to do, and we're going to go all in on it. And whether it works or not, I think that, you know, everybody was sold this bill of goods, especially people in my generation, was sold this bill of goods of like, if you do this, you'll be fine. If you do this, you'll be fine. And the people that were saying that because it worked for them. They were like, hey, look, I didn't like working for the post office, but I did it for 30 years and never looked back. And now I have a pension. I'm retired. And that's how life is. But it's like they didn't foresee the fact that email was coming. So now people don't fucking mail letters anymore unless you have somebody tied up in a basement and it's for ransom. So now all the people that dedicated themselves to being a postal worker are 17 years in, and now they're only delivering mail 4 days a week. Now they're closing your statement. But I thought this was always going to last. Nothing's always going to last. Something's going to come and replace. They were doing stories about the taxi drivers in New York City where it's like, I think you have to buy like medallions or something that you have to buy your car and then you make, but you know, being a taxi driver in New York was so lucrative because there's people always going to need taxis. In New York City, they didn't see Uber coming. So now all these people that invested their family's life savings in this taxi, which they were willing to work hard and drive, is irrelevant. And it's like, it's not a shot against them. They tried their best, but they listened to advice from a generation that's now outdated. Blockbuster had a chance to buy Netflix, but the CEO said that people like buying movies. They like to go out and have the experience of like sitting with your girl and deciding which movie and picking it up and looking at the back. They didn't realize people want to fucking sit home naked, high, eating cake and watching movies. He didn't see that because he's a
Sounds more
fucking
fun,
old guy that made billions one way.
Yeah.
So it's just like, don't listen to anybody. No one knows what they're talking about.
That's facts.
That's the title of the episode, yo. No one knows what they're talking about.
Don't say anybody knows what they're talking about.
Nobody.
Yeah. So to talk about what you're doing, why are you in Grand Rapids? Let's go ahead and throw that out there.
I'm here. I have shows. I have two shows tonight, 8 and 10:30. I think at the Bob at Dr. Grins in Grand Rapids, and I have a show at a casino tomorrow in Mount Pleasant, and I'm back here for the weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. One show Thursday, 2 Friday and Saturday.
Also at Dr. Grins?
Also at Dr. Grins. You can get your tickets on drgrins.com. Come out and see me. But yeah, that's
So have you ever done a New Year's Eve show? I wanted to ask you about
many
that.
years, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Do you get turnout? Like,
yeah, people come out for New Year's Eve. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done New Year's Eve almost every year of my career. I don't think I did one last year. But New Year's Eve shows are different. People they have a
looking for the time of their lives.
Yeah, well, they're just juiced up. People are hammered by the time they get there, so you got to keep your jokes shorter and not expect as much from the audience. But it's their night, New Year's Eve shows are different. They're fun, but you have to go in there with the mentality that, like, this is just you're part of their experience. Tonight, comic. Then they're gonna have some champagne because they're girl and go home. It's not like I'll pay attention. I'm gonna drop some knowledge tonight. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
To me.
It's good that you have that awareness.
Have some fun and send y'all home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's dope.
So for anybody that's looking for some stuff to do this weekend, Friday, you said Thursday you're gonna be at Soaring Eagle, probably. Is the name?
Tomorrow Wednesday I'll be at the Soaring Eagle Casino. Tonight I'll be at the Bob in Grand Rapids, 8 and 10. And check those show times. I'm not sure about that. And then
well, this will come out on the 1st.
So then don't worry about that. And then so Thursday tonight I'll be at the Bob 8 o'clock, and then 8 and 10:30 Friday and Saturday.
Cool. Yeah, make sure you guys go check that out.
It's
gonna be a fun experience.
Thanks for the insightful conversation, man.
There's
a lot of gems here, and
Oh man, you guys are a pleasure, man. Definitely. Next time I'm in town, let's do it.
Yeah,
facts,
sure.
100%.
Thank you. Go ahead and pimp your social media.
What
you're up to?
Yeah, you guys can follow me at Al Jackson on Twitter, Al Jackson on IG, and you can find me everywhere. My YouTube page is Al Jackson Comedy, and you can watch me every day on Daily Blast Live. Check your local listings.
Boom. Wow. There it is. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you.
All right,
That's a wrap.